The New York Rangers, for some unknown reason, are said to be considering John Hynes to be their next head coach. We try to make some sense out of it on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Also, going to be discussing a trade that just went down between the Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers. All this and much more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 840 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's go ahead, dive right into it. John Hynes. I gotta say, I tweeted this out when the rumors, really began to kick up yesterday. And, for frame of reference, it's Thursday morning as I'm recording this. Gotta go kind of quick here because you never know with the Rangers. They can make kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It's possible that as I'm recording this, they might name their next head coach of this team. And as we are now aware, it's possible that it could be John Hynes whenever that does happen. But again, I was tweeting out something the other day when, again, the rumors began to pick up, and I believe Molly Walker might have been the first one to report it that the Rangers were interviewing John Hynes. And it's funny because I saw something where, they've received permission to interview John Hynes. And my first thought was, who did they receive permission from? John Hynes just got fired. It's not like you have to reach out to another team, as far as I know, to get permission to talk to him. But regardless, sounds like the Rangers, they might be taking John Hynes as a serious contender as far as being the next head coach of this team. As far as his track record is concerned, though, pretty underwhelming one. And again, the big thing that I tweeted out, we're going to talk about this later in today's episode, but it's the fact that, Ranger fans right now kind of divided on going out and finding a coach that has, a lot of experience in the NHL, a lot of success in the NHL, preferably maybe even somebody that's won at least one Stanley Cup. And there are candidates out there, including a couple the Rangers have talked to, that do fit that description. At least they've had success in the NHL, and in some cases, Stanley Cup winning coaches as well. John Hynes, though, is not that, and he's also not the other extreme, and that's, a fresh voice. He's somebody that's had his chances in the NHL and hasn't done very well with them. And like I said, we're going to break down that aspect of this whole coaching search for the Rangers in due time today. But for the time being, I did want to go ahead, run through John Hynes' track record, give him kind of a fair trial here. As I said, he's kind of near the bottom of my list. I mentioned that on Twitter the other day. But as far as what he's done as a head coach, we'll start with his days in the AHL. He first became a head coach there with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. That was all the way back in 2010-2011. He spent 5 seasons there as their head coach, did win the division, or won the East in his first season there. Made the playoffs all 5 years, put together a career record in the AHL with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Again, this is over 5 seasons of 384 wins, 384 games. He had 231 wins, 126 losses, and 27 overtime losses. And then in the playoffs, a record of 33-31. And his playoff runs go as follows in the AHL: loss in the division finals, loss in the conference semifinals, lost in the conference finals, lost in the conference finals, and lost in the conference semifinals. So overall, no championships or anything like that, but he did a good enough job in the AHL to warrant some consideration as an AHL head coach, and he eventually got his chance right after, no time in between here. He went right from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. 2014-2015 was his last season there, and then 2015-2016, that becomes his first season as head coach of the New Jersey Devils, and he spends 5 seasons there, or at least part of 5 seasons, and to be frank, it didn't really go very well. You're looking at a situation where he only made the playoffs in 1 of those 5 years, put together a career record with the Devils of 150, 159, and 45. And to go in order, from least recent to most recent, the 5 seasons that he spent with the New Jersey Devils, first year, they finished 7th in the Metro, they missed the playoffs. Next year, they finished 8th in the Metro, they missed the playoffs. The third year, they finished 5th in the Metro, they make the playoffs, but they lose in 5 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. His 4th year there, back to 8th in the Metro, and they missed the playoffs. And then his 5th year there, he only lasted 26 games, started 9-13-4, and was fired in the middle of the season. And then he ends up later that season, in fact, taking over as the head coach of the Nashville Predators, and he has spent, once again, parts of the last 4 seasons there, and it didn't really go a whole lot better. I mean, they would at least make the playoffs, but as far as winning a playoff series, that's still a foreign concept to a team coached by John Hynes. It has never happened to date, but the first season, once again, with the Predators, 2019-2020, they finished 5th in the Central. They make it into the playoffs. They have to play in the qualifying round. That was the year, 2020 with COVID and everything, and there's 24 teams in the playoffs. But they lose in the qualifying round to Arizona, a team that they were largely expected to beat, and they lose them in 4 games, the best-of-5 series, losing 4 games there. The following season, they finished 4th in the Central, but they lose in the first round to the Carolina Hurricanes, and that's, again, still with COVID kind of wreaking havoc. You had the restructured divisions, and that's why, Carolina and Nashville can meet in the first round of the playoffs, whereas under usual circumstances, they would only be able to meet in the finals because, East team and a West team. But then, third season for John Hynes as coach of the Predators, they make the playoffs. They get swept fairly easily by the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the playoffs. And then this past season, they finished 5th in the Central, and they missed the playoffs. Hynes and the Predators putting up a record of 42, 32, and 8. So for his NHL total, we are now looking at 602 games coached by John Hynes, 284 wins, 255 losses, and 63 overtime losses. And then his playoff record. And it's hard to put together a strong playoff record because unless you make a deep run, you're going to finish under 500. If you lose in the second round, there's a very good chance you're going to finish under 500, so I get that. But his playoff record for his career as an NHL head coach, now 4-15, and as I mentioned before, he has never been past the first round of the playoffs. And again, something that I want to talk about in today's episode, we'll get to that in just a second, is the very simple fact, again, that Ranger fans right now are divided between wanting a coach with credentials and instant credibility and success in the in the league, preferably a Stanley Cup winner. There are some candidates out there who qualify as such, and they're also tied between either that or going with a coach who is a fresh voice and hasn't been on the NHL coaching carousel and can bring some new perspectives. Try to find your own John Cooper, your own Jared Bednar, whatever it might be. We're going to discuss that concept in just a second, but first, we got to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the ongoing NBA playoffs because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action in the NBA as well as the NHL than America's #1 sportsbook, which is, of course, FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And for the everydayers, definitely stick around. It really feels like at this point, we could be minutes away, hours away. Maybe we're still days away, maybe even weeks away from the Rangers naming a new head coach, but it is starting to feel like business is kind of picking up, and the decision is going to be made sooner rather than later. That's just kind of the feeling that's in the air right now. Call it a gut feeling by me or whatever you want to call it, but it does feel like we are getting pretty close to a resolution, and whoever the pick is, we'll obviously break that down from all angles, discuss the winners and the losers, all that fun stuff here on Locked On New York Rangers. But to keep everything rolling here and keeping the focus on John Hynes, who, again, no sooner than 24 hours after he was let go by the Nashville Predators, the Rangers are all over John Hynes and trying to interview him. They do interview him, and they're basically treating it like either John Cooper or like Jared Bednar or somebody just became available. Mike Sullivan, take your pick of any of these accomplished coaches in the NHL. But again, right before we took a little break there, I mentioned that this is kind of the worst of both worlds if you're a Ranger fan, because it's almost like playing roulette, and it lands on 0. Everybody loses. Everybody is a Ranger fan right now either wants this guy to be a head coach or, I could live with that guy. He'd be all right. Oh, I don't want that guy. Oh, this guy would be great. I think he could really help the young players. I want a coach that is experienced and has won a Stanley Cup. I want a coach that's a fresh voice, and let's try to find our own John Cooper, our own Jared Bednar, somebody who's not experienced in the NHL, but has some upside and maybe could bring some good things to the table for this New York Ranger team. We get absolutely none of that when it comes to John Hynes because, yeah, he's experienced, as I just mentioned, parts of 5 seasons with the Devils, parts of 4 seasons with the Predators, next to no success in that amount of time. So you can't even really put him in with the group as far as experienced NHL coaches that includes Peter Laviolette, Mike Babcock, Joel Quenneville, if you want to go that route, which I don't, but I know there's some people out there that would be open to that. Daryl Sutter, Bruce Boudreau, everybody I just mentioned except for Boudreau has won at least one Stanley Cup in the past. So, there's people that want to go that route and bring in a proven winner and guy that comes into that locker room with instant credibility. You're not going to get that with John Hynes. And you're also not going to get a new voice in the vein of, say, Leach, Burnett, Carberry. I mean, 2 of them have already been hired as head coaches, so they're now off the table. But the Rangers obviously would have had a chance at any of these people once the offseason began and once they fired Gerard Gallant. And now you're in a situation where, not only are they not considering any of the names that I just mentioned, but they're considering somebody who I don't think should even really be in the running because, again, he doesn't fit either profile. He doesn't fit a guy that's had experience and has success in this league. The experience, yes. The success, no. And he also is not a new voice, a fresh voice, somebody that, this guy, he's worked hard and he's climbed the coaching ranks and he's, done this and that. And he's been a great assistant coach with this team or that team, and he's waiting for his chance, and now he's going to get it. He's not that guy either because he's been a coach, as I said, for parts of at least 9 different seasons in the NHL and little to no success to show for it. It just doesn't make any sense. Today, once again, is Thursday. For frame of reference here, he was fired on Tuesday, and again, as I mentioned a second ago, Rangers treating him like he's one of the all-time greats, becoming available, immediately pouncing and immediately looking to interview him and potentially bring him in as the next head coach of the New York Rangers. And, another thought that I had once this news broke that the Rangers were looking at John Hynes and they're going to give him serious consideration is you look at the Rangers over the past few seasons, and there's a theme over those seasons, going back however many years you want to go. I would say certainly in the Gerard Gallant era as well as the David Quinn era, where the Rangers seem to have this obsession with quote-unquote earning it. Oh, man, you got to earn a spot on this New York Ranger roster. You got to earn more time on the ice. You got to earn a top 6 role. You've got to earn a spot on the top power play unit. Everybody has to earn it, and for the most part, I think that's a good thing. Players should have to earn their keep and show that they belong and show that they deserve increased role or increased time on the ice. That's all well and good, but if you preach that for at least half a decade now, that's all we've been hearing with guys like Lafreniere and Kakko and Hedl. Everybody's got to earn it. Everybody's got to make sure that they're putting their best foot forward every single night, delivering to the best of their abilities to get significant time on the ice, to, I guess, in Kakko's case, not be a healthy scratch in a playoff game. In Lafreniere's case, not be a healthy scratch during this past season. Everybody's got to earn it, right? Especially the young players. They're the ones that really, really have to earn it. And now you're looking at John Hynes. Let me ask everybody a question here. What has John Hynes done to earn this opportunity with the New York Rangers? We just ran through his track record. There's nothing to be impressed about. There's nothing that's all that, eye-catching, anything that jumps off the page. He's mostly just not had success as an NHL head coach, and I'm sorry to be that blunt or even that mean about it, but that's the facts. He just has not gotten the job done. His teams have largely underachieved. He had that one year with the Devils where they went to the playoffs, and I think they kind of were considered a little bit of an underdog team that year. Maybe they overachieved that season. But then the seasons that followed, it was basically chaos, and it went right back to the status quo where the Devils were really struggling. He ends up getting fired. And, with the Predators, they're a team that, is expected to be a playoff team. I think there's enough there that you would expect them to be in the playoffs, and for the most part, they were when he was the head coach there, but they haven't really done a whole lot. They're one of those teams that's quote-unquote tough to play against. By all measures, we always talk about teams that are tough to play against in the playoffs, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. When you look at the Predators, the players on their team, they kind of fit that description. Maybe they're not going to be at or near the top of the standings in the regular season, but they seem like a tough physical team that would be difficult to play up against in the playoffs, and yet they've been a pretty easy out, anytime that they've made the playoffs under John Hynes, which kind of leads me into something else that I want to talk about. Forget about his track record and everything just for a second. When you look at the style that John Hynes coached teams have mostly played, a defensive kind of grinded out style. I've talked about this with the Predators. Whenever the Rangers play them, it's always kind of a dogfight, and I joke that sometimes it becomes like a 60-minute board battle. Very defensive game. It's one of those games you have to just outlast them and try to out-physical them and probably try to win the game 2-1 or something like that. But that to me doesn't sound like the kind of coaching style that's going to get guys like Alexis Lafreniere, like Capo Caco, to that next level that we need them to get to. I mean, Artemi Panarin, we've been talking about a coach that can come in and reach him and make him be, the player in the playoffs that he is in the regular season. Is John Hynes really the guy for the job? I mean, what about his style would lead you to believe that Artemi Panarin in the playoffs next year is going to go off and put up big offensive numbers for this team? So I just don't get it. I don't even get why he's being considered. And again, I'm not trying to be overly blunt or overly mean here. Of all the coaching candidates that we've talked about, I think John Hynes is right at the bottom of the list for me. Again, I have to be honest here. I have to be objective. I have to be fair. And that's kind of where I'm at right now as far as John Hynes is concerned and the prospects of him coaching this Ranger team is concerned. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I did want to talk a little bit about just this crazy development that has happened over the past 24 hours here, and that is the fact that Ranger fans seem to agree on something, and it's the fact that they don't want John Hynes to be the next head coach of this team. So we're going to talk about that. I also want to talk about a trade that was struck between the New York Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers, and we will get to all that good stuff in just a second. All right, so as I mentioned just a second ago, it is very, very difficult to get New York Ranger fans to universally agree on just about anything, whether it's the way a coaching staff is doing its job, whether it's a certain player that is underachieving or overachieving, or whether it's that was a bad trade, that was a good trade. It's really hard to get universal agreement or even, getting anywhere near universal agreement for anything that the Rangers do, whether it's, who they hire as the GM, who they hire as the coach. You guys know what I'm talking about. The list goes on and on. You watch the playoffs this past season. You watch what Patrick Kane did. These are all things that have caused a lot of great heated Ranger debates when it comes to social media, heated Ranger fans debates when it comes to social media. So now you look at a situation here where the Rangers are considering John Hynes, and I've been on Twitter, I've been on social media, I've been kind of scouring and just kind of getting a feel, getting the pulse of Ranger Nation, trying to figure out what everybody's feeling about this. I can't find a single New York Ranger tweet, a single New York Ranger fan that feels good about this. I can't find a single person, a single solitary tweet where somebody's like, oh yeah, John Hynes, he's the guy for this team. I'd love for the Rangers to hire John Hynes. It's not there. There's nothing on Twitter that is in any way positive as it pertains to the Rangers potentially hiring John Hynes. That's a near impossible feat for the Rangers to pull off, that they got Ranger fans to agree on something, but it seems like there's almost nobody that wants this to happen. And something else that I should mention here before I forget about this, John Hynes and Chris Drury were teammates in college, and that kind of goes back to the point that I was making about earning it. Maybe that's what John Hynes has done to earn this job. The fact that him and Drury are buddies and they were teammates in college, that should not be the determining factor for who becomes the next head coach of the New York Rangers. I like to believe that even if Hynes is the guy, that's not solely why they're hiring him. The fact that him and Drury have a personal relationship, have history, I would have to believe that Drury would hire the best man for the job, and I hope that turns out to be the case. We will see. And getting back to what I said about John Hynes and the fact that, Ranger fans right now are all kind of in agreement that they don't want him to be the guy. I saw another tweet that kind of made me laugh. Maybe this is a ploy by Chris Drury and the Rangers to get Ranger fans to embrace the idea of bringing Peter Laviolette as the next head coach of this team. Because right now, you look at the reaction as far as Peter Laviolette is concerned, I'm not seeing a ton of people that hate it. I'm also not seeing a ton of people that love it, and I'm kind of in that same category. of all the coaching retreads, of all the coaches going around on the carousel, the NHL coaching carousel that we've talked about on here, I think Peter Laviolette's probably the one that makes the most sense. I would feel all right about it. Wouldn't be doing cartwheels around my living room about it, but I could live with it. Maybe the fact that the Rangers are said to be hiring John Hynes, now all of a sudden Peter Laviolette sounds great for a lot of these fans that don't want John Hynes to be the next head coach, and you can include me in that. Now all of a sudden it's like, yes, Laviolette, get in here, coach the team, let's go. Let's make this thing happen. Let's get a deal done. Let's get Peter Laviolette behind the bench for the New York Rangers. Maybe this whole thing is just a giant ploy by Chris Drury to get the fans on board with the idea of Peter Laviolette being the next head coach of this team. But as far as John Hynes is concerned, if there is a situation where he indeed becomes the next coach of the New York Rangers, I can't even believe I'm saying that. With all the other options that are out there, we're seriously going to consider John Hynes. But if he does become the next head coach of this New York Ranger team, I will give him a chance. I think it's only fair if all of us Ranger fans at least give him a chance. There are fans, not just of the Rangers and not even just of sports. There are fans of everything in the world where, they'll voice an opinion about something and then they'll just stick to their guns no matter what. And it almost gets to the point, if we use John Hynes as an example here, where, Hynes naysayers, people that don't want him brought in to coach this team, which as far as I can tell is 100% of the fan base right now, but not all of them, but at least some of them will stick to their guns on that, and they will almost kind of hope for Hynes to fail just so they can be right about something. I'm not going to be that guy. If John Hynes is the coach, if they bring him in, I'm going to give him a fair shake on this podcast, as well as just, talking Ranger hockey with my friends, whatever the case might be. I'll at least give him a fair trial. I'll at least give him a fair chance to be the head coach of this team. And I'll say right now, if he is the coach, I hope more than anything that I'm completely wrong about all this, that he turns out to be an awesome head coach, that he just needed, the right team, the right situation, and that turns out to be the Rangers. He ends up being a perfect fit, helps this team get to where it needs to be, and ultimately lifts the Stanley Cup over his head. I will never be more happy to be as dead wrong about something in my life as I will be if that scenario plays out with John Hynes and the New York Rangers. But I will say this. If there are any Ranger fans out there who really like John Hynes and they feel like this is a great idea, he's the guy, definitely hire him, he's the perfect coach to bring this Ranger team to the next level, talk me into it. What am I missing here? What positive aspect of John Hynes is there that I'm not seeing right now that could help this Ranger team, that can help young players develop, that can help this team obviously do a heck of a lot better in the playoffs next season than they did this past season? And it might be a situation where maybe John Hynes isn't even your top choice, but maybe he's in your top three and you feel like it could be a solid hire. I'm not even looking for anybody who thinks that John Hynes, number one, he's the man, he's the coach that we need to have. I'm just looking for people that are okay with it, that think okay, it's a decent hire. Because right now, I'm not seeing any of that. And as far as me personally, I just don't get it. I don't get why he's really even in consideration. And I'm sorry if that's a little too mean or anything like that, but I got to be honest here. We've talked about the other NHL coaches or the prospective NHL coaches and all the different candidates to be the next head coach of the New York Rangers. I've got every single one of them, on my ranking list ahead of John Hynes, at least as of right now. We'll see what happens. Obviously, as I'm recording this, no decision has been made, but it does sound like, he's kind of crept into contention pretty quickly here, and we'll just see what happens. To close out today's episode, once again, talk me into it. Leave a comment in the YouTube section if you think John Hynes is the man for the job. But to close out today's episode, Rangers complete a fairly minor trade with the Edmonton Oilers. They send Jayden Grubbe to Edmonton in exchange for a 5th-round pick for this year's draft. Grubbe last season as the captain of the Red Deer Rebels, 64 games, 18 goals, 49 assists, so 67 points in 64 games, was a +10, another 2 goals and 14 assists in 12 playoff games, and was a +2 at that time. And my understanding is that the Rangers were not going to sign him to his ELC, so basically they were kind of just in a situation where they wanted to get something for him in a trade, and they have now done that. Once again, a 5th-round pick for this upcoming season. To kind of just take stock as far as the Rangers' draft capital is concerned, so going into this year's draft, the Rangers will have a 1st-round pick. They will have Colorado's 3rd-round pick. They will have Edmonton's 5th-round pick. They have their own 6th-round pick, and they have Winnipeg's 6th-round pick as well. So that's where things stand as far as the Rangers and the NHL draft. And We will eventually do a mock draft. I want to really target that number 23 overall pick for the Rangers, try to figure out some players they could select there and kind of break them down on future episodes of the Locked On New York Rangers. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.